friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time, and I'm here for another Monday this and that video, which if you're new, this is a weekly vlog that I do to cover several different topics. Sometimes I'm giving updates, sometimes I'm leading you back to old videos that I already have showing how to do certain things or let you know of videos yet to come, giving you other announcements and whatever I feel like talking about, especially with all the new people coming in. They may not realize what I already have out or even think to look for it, which was one of the main reasons I started doing these videos in the first place, was just to let people know what's already out there. But also to give you some quick tips and hints and whatever just comes to mind. So let's get to the topics of today, and starting off with the homemade wine. So I do have a whole series out on winemaking, which I'll link to in the description box down below. So at the end of this video, make sure that you click on more or show more somewhere down here below the channel name, and that'll open that up so you can find all my links there. But I just wanted to real quickly just explain why you should make your own homemade wine, even if you don't drink. I don't drink, but I still make wine because of its many uses. And I'll be doing another video talking just about that in the near future. But one of the things that you should know, I mean, winemaking is super easy. And when you're making your own, you have control over exactly what goes into it. Because of what we see in our restaurants and our local stores, we assume all wine should always be absolutely 100% clear. It should always have a certain flavor, a certain aroma. Yet what people don't realize is that all those store-bought wines have a whole bunch of additives in them, and a lot of them are not very healthy for you. And I'm going to be going a little bit more in depth on this in that future video I'm talking about. But when I make my own homemade wine, all I'm using is my own home pressed juice, mostly from my own grapes. I've also used store-bought organic juice as well. I do add some organic cane sugar, not the GMO beet sugar, the cane sugar, to make it stronger, especially since my grapes are pretty sour. They never have a chance to really put on sweetness. So when you have juice like that, you do need to add sugar to get a good, stronger wine. You don't really have to, but it's a good idea to do that. But so just the juice, the organic cane sugar. You can also use honey, by the way, but when you use honey, it's then called mead. And then the other thing I don't buy any kind of commercial yeast or fancy wine yeast. I just make my own fermentation starter. It's all I've ever used. I use organic herbs, spices, things from my garden, whatever's on hand, and I have a video just on that as well that I'll link to down below on how to make a fermentation starter and all its many uses. And that's it. That's all that goes into my wine. I'm not adding clarifiers and defoamers and colorants or added flavors unless I'm mixing fruits, like the time I made a blend of my grapes and wild picked blackberries, juice them, and use that juice to make a very beautiful and very tasty wine that was a popular hit with family and friends. So I just wanted to touch on that. So if you're interested in learning how to make your own, again, it's easy. It's easy. If I can do it, anyone can do it. If you go to websites and read all this stuff about it, it sounds confusing. Just stick with the simple, natural way to do it, and it's easy. Now, I want to talk also about dehydrating cheese. So I have a video that I'll link to in the description box about dehydrating cheese and making a powder out of it and what you can use it for. I predominantly use the powder, which you'll see right here. I have several jars like this right now, actually vacuum sealed up. The main things I use it for is anytime I'm making a cheese sauce, such as for macaroni and cheese or anything that I want to add cheese to, a cheddar cheese. And then also I just put it right into, whenever I'm making some kind of omelet or scrambler, I'll just put the powder right in with the eggs. Especially if I don't have freshly grated cheese, it's so much easier just to add the powder as is, and it works great. And I just add that into the scrambled eggs, let it sit for a minute, and then cook it up. It's wonderful. So those are the two main things I've used it for. I've experimented with it, like using it on popcorn and more, and that's good. But those are my two favorite ways. So anyway, I'll link to that video, but I'll also link to the cheese waxing video, which you'll see right here. I have some cheese that I waxed. And the reason I'm bringing this up is that because when you make a cheese powder like this, you dehydrate it, it loses, I think it's because a lot of the fat will come out, and so it loses some of that stronger cheese flavor. But you can take your cheese, like just even if it's a mild or medium cheddar or whatever kind of cheese, it can be any kind, and then you wax it, and then you can let it age for 6 months. This is actually a year old now. And so I did cut a piece off, you can see right here, yesterday so I could taste it. And I was afraid it would be really, really sharp because I never actually let it sit for a whole year before. And it's really good. It's really good, just like that. But the main purpose of me doing this is so that when I go to dehydrate it, because it's already got a very sharp, strong flavor, and I know it's going to mellow out when I go to dehydrate it, having it waxed and aged for a time does make it turn out much better and gives your cheese powder a better flavor. So, or you can just buy a super sharp cheddar or other very strong cheese and do that with this. And then you can see here, more carrots. I kept forgetting I still had carrots out there. So I went out there yesterday morning and pulled a lot of these up. Though there's still a few of these in here, like this really fat one here and this one here, that were some of the ones that came up on their own. All the rest of them, including this weird yellow one, which I never have planted any this color, these all came up from seed that I planted in the last box. So they were the last ones to really start growing from the seed I had saved from the previous year. So yes, and there's still a lot out there. So my plan today is to get busy and start cutting these up, because there's no way we could eat through all these. Though we do like fresh raw carrots, we don't eat them that often. So I'm going to be, just like I did with my last batch and love it so much, I'm going to be dehydrating a bunch of these. And so I'll link to that video. And yes, you can blanch your carrots if you want. Some people claim it holds the color better. And I personally never saw a loss in color. You can see here how nice these look. And I thought they looked great. And I didn't blanch them. So I always try to take the easiest way. Sometimes blanching is best, like with potatoes and some other things. But for the most part, I usually just cut things up and dehydrate them. I'm not going to bother doing all that extra work when I personally don't see it as necessary. And mostly this is something I would use in soups, stews, adding to the pan with a roast, you know, so it can cook in the juices. And I've done that, and I think they're really good. So that, anyway, that's what I'll be doing with most of these carrots. I'll keep a few of the smaller ones for just munching on raw, and then the rest I'll dehydrate up. Speaking of dehydrating, let's come back to the cheese for a minute. Now, I was using cloth for the cheese so it could absorb the oils, but now that I got all these great silicone sheets for my dehydrators, or even if I decide to do it by the wood stove, I use these, because then I don't have to worry about trying to wash all that oil out of my cloth that I put on my dehydrating rack, and it keeps everything contained. And then you just, you know, you can just blot off the excess oil with a paper towel or whatever you want to use, because the fat will come out of the cheese when you're drying it. So this is what I use for any liquid thing. And so I'll link to, even though I like them both, these were the first ones I found. The reason I have these, because they were the very first ones I found that actually had a lip on them. And so this is what I use for any liquid things like broth, milk, eggs, and so on. And then they came out with some that were, they have a bunch of them out there now. They have all kinds. They have yellow ones. They have, I don't know. I haven't looked recently. They probably have them in every color you can think of, and different companies are putting them out now. And anyway, the brown ones I got for a better price. And initially I'd only bought them so I could try them before, since I was telling people about them, like I should try them and make sure there's nothing wrong with them. And nothing wrong with them. They're just a little bit different shape, have a little higher lip on them. I love them both. And those, again, the brown ones were a better price. I'll link to those down below, but you might still be able to find, by searching, they might even be more out there at a better price. Just make sure to read the reviews. So anyway, I'm glad I have two sets, full sets now, because I have two Casoris I like to use them in, and or I can use those on or next to my wood stove when I'm doing my dehydrating in there. And by the way, I dehydrated up a whole bunch more black olives, so now I have almost a full quart jar. This was 8 cans. of whole olives that I sliced up by hand and dehydrated. And I'm going to be actually shooting a video on that today, and my purpose of doing that, so I can talk about what I plan on using those in. But anyway, I'm really happy with them. And yes, I did try green olives, and they turn out a lot more salty. And I'm not really sure what I'd use those in, but I just tried a little bit just to see. And they're actually pretty tasty just to snack on. So the shelf stability is something I'm always getting asked. And I have a video just on that where I talk about the shelf stability of home preserved foods. And I'm talking about dehydrated foods and home canned foods mostly. And so I'm going to link to that down below. But generally speaking, as long as all your jars, if you're vacuum sealing or canning into jars, as long as everything stays sealed, it's not going to just suddenly one day spoil. Your food will, over time, especially if it's exposed to a lot of heat and a lot of light, it will lose quality and color over time, but not everything does. Some things can lose color but still have an amazing flavor when you go to open that up. I found that out with certain things, that it tasted just as good even though the color didn't look great. There are a few dehydrated foods that don't hold up as well for as long, even if the jars stay vacuum sealed, and that includes citrus slices and bananas, and I'm not sure why. I find those things it's best if you find a way to use them up within a year. Bananas are easy because I love to snack on dehydrated bananas. But yeah, you just want to use them up within a year if you're going to do that. But those are the only things I've discovered so far with all the years and all the things I've dehydrated that have lost a lot of quality in such a short amount of time. But that doesn't mean that they were spoiled. They just lost quality. That's all. So yeah, your food's just not going to suddenly go from, okay, well, it's been a year or it's been 6 months, it must be bad now, let's throw it all out. This is a bad mentality that we've been taught by certain powers that be, that, just wants us throwing out food and wasting food instead of learning that home preserved foods can last for many years. So don't believe all the hype. Just take some time. Just listen to people who are experienced, who've been canning and dehydrating for many years. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is some more YouTube stupidity. So this morning, I'm checking my email and I found that YouTube removed yet another one of my videos for the dumbest reason. Well, but the reason didn't make any sense, and they never told me what exactly the problem was. And it was a video I did at least 1.5 years ago when I first started making baby food for Jace. I was making it here so I could always have some, and I was making it out of healthy, organic, natural foods, no additives whatsoever. And some of it was my own homegrown stuff, like my green beans. And they labeled it, first of all, it falls under they said it was medical misinformation, and then clarified it only a little bit by saying that it was against community standards to use harmful and dangerous substances. What? We're talking real organic food here. And no other explanation. Harmful, dangerous substances. So apparently, real, wholesome, organic food is harmful and dangerous. But you can run down to your local grocery store and buy a jar of baby food that's loaded with heavy metals. And yes, even in those organic brands. And I don't care what brand it is. I don't care what they claim. You have no idea what might be in there unless you're testing it yourself. But you take your own homegrown green beans and turn that into a puree for your babies. Ooh, that's dangerous and bad and scary. Yet that's the old-fashioned way of doing things. That's the way people used to do things before they started coming out with all these convenient baby foods. And then try to convince you that those are better for your baby than what you can do yourself. And yes, I tried to appeal it immediately. Immediately, they denied my appeal. Again, no clear explanation as to what they were deeming a dangerous and harmful substance. So stupid. So, I'm saying a lot of this to remind people that Rumble is still one of the safer places that I can keep putting that kind of content out. Because who knows what they're going to decide is dangerous and harmful. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I went and read through the community guidelines again under the substances, the harmful, dangerous substances, which I'll put a picture right here. And I can guarantee none of these things were added to that baby food. So I have no idea what they are talking about. And they won't tell you. They just won't tell you. They just want to leave you guessing. So you never actually know. So the fact that Rumble recently came out and stood against the big government when they tried to force certain channels off of their platform, and they basically told them where to stick it. So for now, I still trust Rumble for that. Am I saying they can't be suddenly become entirely government controlled no matter how hard they try? No, I'm not saying that, because the powers that be can just shut anything down if they choose to. Let's just hit the kill switch on that one. So my Rumble channel is always linked in the description box down below. And for some more information, I keep forgetting to put my Instagram link in there now that I'm back on there. You can check out my Instagram. I'll try to make sure it's in there this time since I'm talking about it. Hopefully I'll remember. But I'm back on Instagram. I'm liking it better than I did before. I definitely like it far better than Facebook. So it's just a place I can keep putting more information, and it's free. And then there's also free studying. And I'm not even sure if that link's always in my description box, but I do try to. It's always changing all the time. But I do try to have a couple other platforms that I'm putting this kind of information out on. So there's at least a few different places. So anyway, just wanted to throw that out there, let you know. So any thoughts, ideas, anything you would like to share, your own experiences on dehydrating carrots and cheese and olives or winemaking and so on, please put those in comments down below. And don't forget to check out the links I'll be putting in the description box as well. Thanks for watching. Take care and God bless.